Let's now have a quick and brief look at the development of new liberal discourses. During the 25 years period after World War II, when world saw an emergence of welfare states in many parts of the world, including Canada, USA, UK, Australia, and some other European countries. Uh, in this backdrop, new liberalism can be seen as a philosophy which combined two contradictory ideas. On one side, it had some kind of utopian free market concept, and on the other side, it had a very strong criticism on the prevailing Keynesian order uh, in the social and economic world. The eruption of a crisis, OPEC crisis in 1970s, which came as a reaction to Gulf War between various Middle Eastern countries and in the involvement of rest of the world into it. The oil crisis created by this OPEC overall, you might call it a predicament, in 1970s made many people realize that neoliberalism can be a solution to uh, this kind of crisis, where we should focus more on individuals uh, than on groups. So the state's regulation uh, about producing healthy groups, about supporting groups in various spheres, became to be challenged, criticized, and it was emphasized upon that individuals should be brought forward. At this historical juncture, which happened in 1970s, new liberals defining crisis moment emerged, and it appeared this was the moment that the supporters of new liberal philosophies were always waiting for. So they extended the idea, long-awaited idea about new liberalism, and they said that this kind of regulation, probably this kind of philosophy, is need of the hour. So in this way, we can call new liberalism as a crisis theory. In contrast to the ideological and policy functions of the modern liberal state, the new liberalism has been primarily uh, related to the remaking and redeployment of the state as the core agency that actively fabricates the subjectivities, social relations, and collective representations which it has been catering for many years or many centuries. Let's say for that matter. Now, new liberal philosophies supported the change in the functions of state, in which the state's transfer of its social and communal well-being obligations traditionally associated with liberal governments were shifted into individual or individuals' well-being themselves. So state's role or obligation to provide communal safety or rights was reduced to individuals only, while at the same time increasing its own regulatory and disciplinary mechanism also. So state apparently was supporting some kind of freedom in business, in individuals' rights, but at the same time it was increasing its regulatory functions also. Thus, the institutional core of new liberalism consists of an articulation of state, market, and citizenship that harnesses the first to impose the stamp of the second onto the third. In other words, it means that some kind of state apparatus of new liberalism consists of three components involving state itself, then market and citizenship. So it is assumed, the critics of new liberalism assume that in new liberal philosophy, state acts as a vehicle to stamp the authority of market on individuals, on citizens. And in this way, individuals, instead of getting freedom, they are more crushed to the bones. So their economic and social capabilities are crushed further, because they become not only under control of the state, but rather Rather, they become under control of so many private entrepreneurs, also private businesses, which govern their lives in real terms. According to the supporters of neoliberalism, free market is the only solution to bring a possible social management and therefore plausible, durable social change. Hayek also argued, who is a supporter of neoliberal philosophy, that he was against devising further machinery for guiding and directing individuals, and called for conditions which are more suitable, favorable to the progress rather than to plan progress. So people should be given those enabling conditions in which they can prosper on their own. They should get opportunities to develop themselves. Instead, somebody else, even state, plans their progress. So individuals' freedom was emphasized. Hayek's ideological framing that a policy of freedom for the individual is the only true progressive policy was a kind of keynote for neoliberal philosophy. However, in contrast to its ideological stance of providing freedom to individuals, we can see that neoliberalism at its core is fundamentally a political state project. It's not economic only, or it's not based on the provision of basic rights to individuals. It's just a very controlling political philosophy that seeks to subvert democratic governance by the general populace. So it has, according to the critics, the neoliberal form of government has actually subverted the actual or genuine democratic norms in many societies of the world. Banner, Peck, and Theodore have claimed that the concept of neoliberalism has become simultaneously a terminological focal point for debates in 80s and 90s and then later on. And it shows an expression of the deep disagreements and confusions. Some people support it, some people are against it. Even the arguments raised in support are not fully potentially viable. Similarly, the arguments against it needs further refinement also. New liberalization is a more apt term to encompass the complex dynamic processes and practices which are heading towards more free market, more deregulation, and more privatization. And it can be conceived as an hegemonic restructuring ethos, as a dominant pattern of regulatory transformation from a state who believed in the welfare of groups, various communal, racial groups, to a state which believes in the freedom of individual and the prosperity of individuals. In short, we can say neoliberalism and neoliberal discourses apparently claim to have given freedom to individuals, economic and social freedom, and it claims to have reduced states' regulation powers. But the critics of neoliberal philosophy believe that this was just a guise or an eyewash. In reality, the state's regulation powers have increased, and now it has reached to individuals' very personal lives also.